Assalamu alaikum. So today we want to talk about a type of prostration or forgetfulness called as-sujudu al-qabli. As-sujudu al-qabli means the two prostration of forgetfulness you observe immediately before you say your taslim, because you have removed or you have decreased some parts of your salat. So the question is, what necessitates as-sujudu al-qabli, the two prostration you observe before you make your taslim? So the first one is, if you have forgotten to recite surah after you had recited Surah Al-Fatiha. We all know that after you have said Wala dhalin Ameen, okay, in the first two rakah of salat, of compulsory salat, the next thing is for you to recite a surah, either Inna Atayna, Qul Huwa Allah, Surah Al-Falaq, and others. If you forget to recite that, you don't have any problem. What you do is, before you make your final taslim, then you go on the prostration the first time, you come back, you go on prostration the second time, you come back, then you say your taslim, then you are good to go. Another reduction that necessitates as-sujudu al-qabli is when you forget to sit between two parts of salat. What do I mean? You are supposed to observe 4 rak'ah in a particular salat, for example, salat al-dhuhr. After the first 2, you need to sit down to make your tashahud. Now, you forgot to stand up, you forgot to sit down, you stood up. There is no problem about that. Once you are done with your salat, you have completed the 4, before you make your taslim, then you go on prostration the first time, you come back, you go on prostration the second time, you come back, then you make your taslim. Another part reduction that can necessitate as-sujud al-qabli is when you forgot to recite at-tashahud. At-tashahud, the first tashahud and the second tashahud. So what do? You do as-sujudu al-qabli, that is 2 prostration before you make your final taslim. Another one is, while you are supposed to read aloud, for example, in Salatul Maghrib, you are supposed to read aloud in the first 2 rak'ah, you read silently. We call it as-sirru fi mahallil jahri in Arabic. You read silently when you are supposed to, or where you are supposed to read aloud. So there is no problem. Okay, let's give an example. In Salatul Maghrib, you entered the Salah, the first rak'ah, and you were silent. You're silent in recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha. Maybe when you got to Al-Dhalin, that was when you remember that you are supposed to recite the Fatiha aloud. There is no problem. You don't need to come back to Fatiha because you have recited Fatiha. So what you just do is, you continue your Salat. Before your final taslim, what do? You do your as-sujudu al-qabli, the 2 prostration you make before you make your final taslim out of reduction. So I'm going to stop here today. Inshallah, the next class, we're going to talk about as-sujudu al-qabli, as-sujudu al-ba'di. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.